that lets you know if you can see the retromolar pad or if you can see the tuberosity, it lets you know that your impression is far back enough that you're not missing any landmarks or you're not missing any structure of a tooth because you can see those areas. Okay, any questions about that? Okay, who knows what edentulous means? Who remembers that word? That's a pretty old word for you seniors here.
Wait, I do have one question. Sorry, I don't mean to
what's your
come in
question?
late. So the retromolar pad, what you're talking about, is that what they cut into to open up to get into like the your where your what am I trying to say?
I think I know what you're trying to say, but I'm gonna let you.
To get your wisdom teeth out?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was trying to say, yeah.
Exactly. So if you have impacted wisdom teeth, meaning they're below the surface, they don't have enough space to erupt into your mouth, yes, the dentist will have to cut into your retromolar pad in order to expose that tooth and then remove it. Same for your maxillary. If you have a maxillary impacted wisdom tooth, they would have to cut into the tuberosity in order to expose that tooth and to extract it.
Why are they two different things if it's the same like type of tissue and like they're just maxillary and mandibular?
Why are they two different names?
Yeah.
So, and it's because they're two different structures. When you look at the tuberosity on the maxilla, it's more like a hook-like structure. Like you can even take your finger and hook your finger on the back of the tuberosity. But when you look at the retromolar pad, it's just a flat surface of tissue. So they're two different structures.
Gotcha.
Okay, so the question I was asking for this was, who remembers what edentulous means? What does it mean if the patient is edentulous? What'd you say?
No teeth?
No teeth. So now we're going to talk about what do we have to think about when we take impressions on an edentulous patient. So that means a patient who does not have any teeth. Okay. Now, when you take an impression on an edentulous patient, you don't have to concern yourself with having a tray that is deep enough to fit the teeth, right? Because that's usually our concern. We want to make sure we capture all the teeth. This process is a lot easier because there are no teeth there. So we're really just taking an impression of the gum tissue that is in the patient's mouth, okay? Usually you will use a different tray. We have trays that are specific to edentulous patients. And you'll see they're more flat. They're not as deep as the ones we take for our normal or average patients, okay? Usually, regardless of if this has perforations in it or not, you still want to use some adhesive onto it as well, because again, you don't have any structure, any teeth or anything to kind of help you build build a solid form in the impression. So you do kind of need that adhesive to help and make sure the alginate stays in the tray. Okay, let me write myself a note. I'll find a picture of it because I could have sworn this slide had one, and then I'll post it for you guys to see, because the trays are not completely different, but they're a lot different from the normal trays that we use for patients who have teeth. All right, reversible hydrocolloid. So we said that alginate impression material was irreversible hydrocolloid. What is that? What did that mean? What did it mean for it to be an irreversible hydrocolloid? So think about the words irreversible hydrocolloid. What did that mean when we said that that's how we described alginate impression?
That may the heat won't change it. It'll stay the same.
Okay. So yes, when we talk about alginate impressions, we cannot change the form back to its original state, right? Whether you heat it up, whether you add water to it, no matter what it is that you do, you cannot change it back to its original solution state, okay? And then hydrocolloid, we said hydro was water, right? In order for us to have the material of alginate, you have to mix the water into the powder, and that is what creates the solution, which then turns into gel. Now, if you have a a reversible hydrocolloid, that means that this impression can be changed back into its original state. So it can go from sol to gel and then back to a sol. Or remember, sol is just the short they use for solution, that mix that we have. Okay, in order for you to get this material to change back to its original state, usually what you have to do is you have to heat it up or change the temperature in some way. Okay, and that's what's going to cause it to revert back to its original state. Hysteresis is the term that we use to describe this function that is happening. So when we change the temperature in order to transform that material, we call that hysteresis. Okay, so the reversible hydrocolloids that we use, they're 85% water and 13% agar. Okay, so this is the substance derived from seaweed. And as you can see, it's very similar to the chemicals that we use for alginate, except alginate has a little bit more fillers in there, and it has a lot more bulkiness to it, which is usually what contributes to the fact that temperatures won't affect it. Temperatures won't affect it going back into its original state. Okay, this has a couple of chemical modifiers in it as well, and that attributes to it being able to change shape and go from solid to a gel and a gel back to a solid. So most of these reversible hydrocolloids that we use, I would say we generally don't like to use them for patients that need that are going to need procedures that are permanent, more like your crowns or your bridges, or things that we know they may have to come back, like while they're in the in-between stage, because we don't want the impression material to distort if it's not stored in the right type of environment. Okay, we have to place this material into a little bath, and that brings the temperature up in order to change it from being a gel back into a solution. But at the same time, if you have this material and you leave it, let's say, in a storage room that the temperature is not controlled, or it's the middle of the summer, let me not say the summer, it's the middle of the winter and you have the heat on in your office and you have this impression material that's just sitting there. Now, it may not go completely back into a solid, into a solution, but it can start to melt away, which is going to distort the impression that you took. Now, what can happen if your impression is distorted, or what will that lead to? What do you have to do now that your impression is distorted?
Make another one?
You have to do another one, but not only that, sometimes you have to even prep the tooth again, right? Because now more time has passed and now you got to start from scratch. And as I keep telling you, doctors don't like to start all over. They like to just go step by step in like a fluid motion. So if you are using a reversible hydrocolloid, it's going to be very important for you to store it in an area that it's not going to come in contact with high temperatures. Okay, now the solution bath that we use has a conditioner, and that liquefies the semi-solid material, but it has to get to at least 212 degrees Fahrenheit, and then it's cooled back down. Then it has a storage bath that kind of maintains the temperature, and then it goes into a tempering bath that keeps it at 110 degrees Fahrenheit before it is placed back into the tray. And again, this is something that takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of back and forth, again, which is something we don't like. We like to pick what is gonna be the fastest way for us to get a procedure done, or what is gonna be the better word is more efficient way. Do you guys know what efficient means, or what it means to be efficient?
Perfect. Good.
Not perfect.
To be
The quickest way.
Hold on, one more. Rebecca and then Haley.
Efficient is like the average, like an average like type of good of something.
I feel like efficient's like the quickest and smartest way to do something.
Right, the quickest way you can do, or I like to say doing more with less, or doing more in less time, right? Being able to complete more things in less time, because you want to work smarter, you don't want to work harder, and you also don't want to use something that's going to take all day for you to just prepare it. So we have to be efficient and productive in the office. The goal, besides giving good quality work, the goal is let's see how much we can do in the amount of time that we have. Okay, so the tray material is packaged in plastic tubes. So each tube holds enough material to fill a full arch. So that means you would need 2 tubes, right? If you're taking both maxillary and mandibular. So again, you have to go through that process with enough material so that you can use it so that you'll be able to fill it in both trays, okay? The material needs enough viscosity. What does that word mean? Remember, that was like way in the beginning of this, Mon. How do we describe viscosity?
How flowable it is.
Right, so how much something can flow or how well something can flow, okay? So you have to make sure that when you're preparing this mixture that it's not too thick, right? But you also don't want it to be too watery. You want it to be able to have an even flow. Okay, the impression tray is filled with that material, and then you have to immerse it into the 110-degree bath for a few minutes, and that will increase the viscosity, so that will help it to flow a little bit more. And then also, because we're bringing that temperature down, it's going to be a lot more comfortable for the patient, because at the end of the day, we don't want to burn our patient's mouth. Okay, the syringe material, the hydrocolloid is dispensed onto the prepared tooth. So this would be helpful if you're doing a crown. If you look back at that video that I posted about preparing for a crown, there has to be impression material placed on the preparation, and then there's another tray of material that you put over that tooth that's being prepared. So with the syringe, you can place the material directly on the tooth in the patient's mouth, and then you will place some material in the tray and then place it over. Okay, so application of the reversible hydrocolloid impression. So you need a stock water-cooled tray. You need some plastic stops. So think about if you've ever been in a medical office and they have those plastic syringes that you can fill up with solution and then you add the top on. It's kind of similar to that. You would place the material in the syringe, but then you have to put a stopper in the back that can help you squeeze the material out. You need tubing that is connected to the tray because we have that little water, we're gonna have like a little water tub that kind of changes the temperatures for us. And of course you need an outlet to drain because that water shouldn't stay there like for days at a time. Once you finish using it for that patient, you have to drain the water out of the tank, and then you would put new water and new solution for the next patient. Okay, the material is then liquefied and moved into the storage bath. You have light-bodied material, which is placed in the syringe, and heavy-bodied material is placed into the tray. So light-bodied material has a higher viscosity, meaning it flows a little more. Heavy-bodied material has a lower viscosity, so it's a little bit thicker. So again, the light-bodied material goes around the tooth, and then you put the heavy body in the tray, and then the dentist will seat the tray onto the patient's mouth. Okay, any questions about that? So I want you guys to go back to the Google Classroom and look at those Alginate videos and answer those questions. And then we'll be back at 12:30 and we'll continue on with the new types of materials. Does anybody have any questions before we get off? All right, so I'll see you guys back at 12:30.